I want some participation, please, in the chat. Can you put your hand up in the chat? Um, if you have more than 10 opportunities on your pipeline at the moment that aren't closing, put your hand up. Have a relative, normally you convert really well, but at the moment you're not. And you're feeling frustrated because nobody's making decisions. Anyone? I'm not seeing anything on the chat. Yeah, you're right. Well done. Anybody else feeling like that? Might not. So it is everyone's different, but certainly I went through that a little bit earlier in the after the summer. I mean, there's loads of reasons that you could add and attribute to this. So COVID, our favorite C word, Christmas is coming and everyone always uses Christmas. I don't know why. It's 2 weeks of the year, but, there's the Great Resignation. Have you heard of that? And, all we need really is snow. And then no one will make any decisions and everyone will just go home and everything will be shut down. So, this time of year is a bit of a funny time of year, really. But I have to say that if I've learned one thing, is that there's always a reason not to make a decision. So people will always find a reason not to make a decision. And in fact, as it says on the screen, 70% of sales decisions are basically made to do nothing. So people just decide not to change, to keep the status quo. So actually, you're fighting that resistance to change is a massive thing. And Action Coach talk about it quite a lot. They got a good formula for it. So I think that because of that, when it comes to selling, margins make a real difference. And it's really, really important to really think about things if you want to make a difference. So knowing what your sales style is, what you feel comfortable in when you're selling, and what other people revert to when they're buying is really important. A lot of it is based on DISC research. I really like DISC. I find it really useful and helpful and clear. So I use it a lot. But there's obviously, you do too, right? But there's a lot of others that you could use. Don't have to use DISC if you don't like it. And I think that it's also important to think about the speed that people make decisions at, as well as their communication style, because a lot of people take time to make decisions. It doesn't mean they're saying no. It just means you have to stick with them. Honestly, I have a feeling I'm about to convert one of the guys I've been talking to. We've been talking to him for about 3 years now. Just takes time. You've got to be patient. It's a virtue. Did you know? So starting with your sales styles, there's loads and loads and loads of information about sales styles, but I found an old blog that I wrote about 3 years ago, and this is my own version of sales styles. See if you can find yourself in any of them. So the apologetic style, anybody? That's saying sorry every 5 minutes and apologizing for your existence and apologizing for having to ask for money and apologizing for everything on the planet. That's one style that I come across. Some people like it. Stealth is people who just don't sell, essentially. So essentially they'll meet with you and they'll chat with you and they'll talk to you, and then they'll go away and they'll do a service, and then they'll basically send you a bill for it. But you haven't agreed the money, you haven't agreed the price. They just kind of come in and talk to you about things and then go away and assume that a sale was made. I don't know if any of you have ever come across something like that. I have. Nosy, it's people that like to ask questions, really, really find everything interesting, want to know more about your personal life, want to know more about your business, really want to understand why is this and why is that. It's like when they were kids, they must have asked why all the time. Then you've got the pushy style. So when people think about selling, mostly they think about pushy people, about this pushy style of people that, are coming in and really pushing for the sale. And then they always try another angle and they don't stop. It really is very effective with some people, the pushy style. Sometimes you do need to bring up the pushy person in you, even if you feel that it's wrong. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you need to see how you use it. And then the final one is the friendly style. So, it used to be when I first started selling like 300 years ago, they used to tell us always to ask people about their how was their holiday? When you go to the hairdresser and they ask you if you've got any plans for the weekend, that sort of thing used to be quite popular when I was young, a long time ago. But you don't have to be friendly. You don't have to ask people about their holidays, but it is useful, particularly if you're quite businesslike, to come in and sort of notice the room. I mean, take a leaf from Geraint's advice about sort of paying attention to things, taking a bit of time, not going straight into for the killer, but look around and go and maybe ask a few questions about what's in the room, if it's right. Yeah, it depends on the other person's style. So these are the selling styles that you might revert into. You might use a number of them. You might just have the one style you feel comfortable in. But if we start with those, and then we look into the buying personas and how those fit in. So the first buying persona is a decisive type, and I love this picture of the monkey. So they really like to make the decisions. They like to feel like they're in the driving seat, and they really are interested in results. They're not necessarily very communicative or very good at emotional intelligence. They can be, but they're not. It's not not necessarily. They can be quite to the point. Tell me what you got. How's it going to work for me? And have you got any examples of where it's worked? So I think that with these people, if you're going to go into details and start telling them about, the history of your company, the history of the product, every nitty gritty, you'll lose them within 5 minutes. These are bullet point people. You've got to stick to the point and be quite quick with it. Doesn't mean you can't have banter. I think they quite like banter and humor and, being, I think they react well to confident people. So whether you're confident or not, you can always pretend. I think apologetic does work for some of these people. If you're going to be quite meek and you kind of come in and there's some of them would like that. I personally don't like that style myself, but if it works for you, if you, jumping out of a cake gets you a sale, I say do it. And pushy, I think, is quite important with these people. So, you can adopt either side, really. You can either sort of go with them, agree with them, give them exactly what they want, and then they'll go with it, or be quite pushy and quite strong with them. So it depends on the person. But you can see, where this will fit in. In terms of the interactive types, so I think that they really like discounts. They want to feel special. They want you to be personable with them, chat with them, ask them loads of questions, become their best friend, listen to them, really appreciate them, because a lot of them do find it quite hard to be appreciated and in the workplace. So actually, if you come in and you give them all this attention, actually they love it. Again, they're not detailed, but they're very different to the D. Whereas the D can handle details if they're important, these people really do not find details very helpful. So that's important to remember, sort of adopt it and make it, your present. You got to think about it from lots of different directions. So, it's not just your meeting with them or your presentation. It's also, what does the proposal look like? How is it written? I always have masses of pictures on mine, and other people have less pictures, and maybe somebody who's not into pictures find my slides really busy. So it's thinking about these things, personalize them, when you're going to sort of sell to someone. I think friendly really, really works with these people. Nosy, they love being interviewed and being asked a lot of questions, and so being in the center of attention, and it really helps you, because the more, if you've been to our sales webinars before, we always talk about knowledge is your weapon. The more you know, the more you sell. So these people love it, so use it. Just ask them loads of questions. So then number 3 is the stabilizer type, the people who like to keep to the status quo and not rock the boat. They're very they're very caring. They really look after people. They really are sort of the center point of their organization in that way. They'd like to keep things all going and ticking well. So they don't make decisions fast, these people. This is one of the biggest things to remember about them. They don't like to make decisions. They don't like to be put in a corner and told to make a decision. They also worry about big changes because they think it will hurt other people, and they always think about the organization and how it's all going to fit in. but they do want to understand. So being specific is really important to them. Just giving them these like, throwaway comments or generalizing is not helpful. They want to understand how your product will fit in and why is it important and how is it going to make change and how will it affect other people. So I think friendly with these people is good, but don't be over familiar. Respect them, give them space. But certainly sort of, you want, I think your main focus with these people is to build trust, because they don't necessarily trust someone they don't know. They don't like change. They don't like other people they don't know. So it's building trust. So being friendly is helpful with that, but being over familiar isn't. So, a lot of it is obviously, there's a lot of detail in it. And what we're doing is just, looking at the top of the iceberg, but it's just trying to give you the headlines, really. And then the last one is the conscientious type, or C, as they're known, high C. Very detailed people. The reason I have this guy sitting under the table with, you can't see the computer, but a lot of computer people, a lot of tech people, a lot of people who deal with data boffins are C style. They're very into detail. That's all that matters. If you're going to give them something that's general, that has no detail, that isn't accurate, then they're not interested. I had a guy who refused to meet me once because I put a spelling mistake in the meeting invitation. I think it wasn't a big spelling mistake, it was something quite silly, and the guy he cancelled the meeting and he said to me, I cannot deal with people who can't spell. I was like, fine, whatever. If he can't deal with people who can't spell it, obviously I can't deal with him. But it is that important to them, and they hate mistakes. I mean, if they themselves they judge themselves very, very severely, don't they, Geraint? And yep. If they make a mistake, that's terrible, and I think there's quite a lot of business owners who are high Cs, so you do see them a lot, and so what they want is details and proofs. So if you're telling them something does this, they need to see it. They're very used to thinking about processes because that's how they work. So they need to see how your product or service fits into their service, into the system that they already have, into the process they already put, and how it's going to work and what's it going to provide them. And case studies, but ones where people specifically talk about specifics. Anything that you can show them where other people have done something and it's worked is really good with them. They don't like the S types, they don't like making quick decisions. And they certainly don't want to know about your latest holiday. So, anyone coming in, talking to them about or asking them too many questions, personal questions, it's not right. Both with the S and the C types, you've got to build a relationship a bit slowly, and you've got to really build, kind of win their trust, work with them. Really try to kind of align yourself with them. I think they would really appreciate that. And so nosy sales style is important, asking a lot of questions, but not doing that in an intrusive way. And really try to understand the details they tell you, because that's so key. So if they took the time to explain their problem to you and you didn't listen, or I don't think you're going to make a sale. So that's my last sort of the last buyer type that I wanted to talk about. So this you can't have a webinar without a Zig Ziglar quote. This is one that we've adopted as a business as well, because I think a lot of what we do is about helping you to create initial trust with people, because we follow up and nurture the leads and keep in touch. So it's thinking about the right sales style, etc., is really key. So I was going to go into questions. We do have a little bit of time as well. I'm just wondering if anyone minds sharing what they think is their sales style, and and how it's worked for them or not in the past. Anyone mind talking about that?
I just shared my disc profile. I find it interesting because I don't really know too much about it, but I find the results quite interesting. So
okay,
because we know each other quite well, yeah. I wonder what you think to my profile.
I don't. It's a really good question, actually. What would you think, Geraint?
I'm just having a look. So you're natural, and then you've got your adapted style. um, I mean, that makes sense for the, because obviously, so there you can see, if you all click on it, you can see that James is where, so you've got the little round dot, and then you've got the little black star. So what you have with disc profiling, very much obviously as Yaf was talking about, you have a natural style that you do normally, and then you have an adapted style that you have at work. Excuse me. And that makes sense for you, James, because obviously what you do. So you need to be much more, you need to have that, you need to be a bit more analytical when you're at work. So for example, mine, I'm an I, I'm a high I. I'm very persuasive in that respect. And so my natural and my adaptive are exactly the same. I'm just an I. So I have to be very careful when I'm talking to a high D style or a high C. So a high C, for example, as Yaf was saying about the very analytical. So a high I is almost the polar opposite of a high C. And they can sometimes see as they're almost like their nemesis, because high I's don't take any notice of any detail. We get distracted by thin air, and whereas a C is very analytical, needs detail, whereas I don't do detail. I get bored with it. I get absolutely bored with it. And I've got to be really careful with that. Obviously, when talking to people who are much more analytical, who are much more detail focused. And I think the biggest thing about this is what you can't do is you cannot expect somebody else to change their style for you. You have to change your style for them. So one of the big things that we always talk about is when you're talking to somebody, first of all, and you say, hello, how are you? And if they go, yeah, great, thanks. They're not a people person. Okay? they are task focused. So, and actually, so if you think about a high D, so again, assertive, decision makers, and then the C, so very, data and facts driven, they're not people focused. So if they say yes, great, thanks, and they don't ask how you are, they're either going to be a decision maker, so they're a D, or someone who's very highly not critical, analytical, so conscientious. Someone who says, oh yeah, great, thanks, how are you? How are you doing? Then they're generally going to be someone who is very persuasive, an I, or someone who's very supportive, an S. So again, very much that people focused rather than task focused. And that's a really, really easy way of spotting somebody really quickly, and you can then very much adapt to their style really quickly. And that's one of the biggest things I've found by using DISC, or knowing what people's styles are, because you can adapt to them, and then you can sell much quicker, or you can be much more in their frame of mind, and therefore either sell to them or actually get to know them, and to actually build up that rapport, because no matter what style you've got, you still need to build up that rapport and that trust.
Personally, what I do in my pipeline is I actually color code it. So I actually color code it to what I think their type is. And then I keep looking at it. So if stuff gets stuck, so they don't make a decision, I then sort of revert to looking at how I can move it forward. And so the first thing is to understand what's sticking it, and to understand whether it's a real opportunity or not. If it isn't an opportunity, then just delete it, be savage, don't keep it on your pipeline just to show that you've got loads of opportunities. But then the ones that you really can't understand, why has that not gone anywhere, just really think about what your what is their style, and what style have you used, and what can you do to make it better. And sometimes it makes sense to give them a call and ask them. Other times you might come up with things yourself, and then you could send them an email and say, look, I know we're talking, but we haven't quite got a decision. Well, I thought maybe this will help, and send them a graph with a bit more details, or a case study, or but really it sounds like, you know, soft skills, where selling is a soft skill, but it does actually make a big difference to conversion, is thinking about, you know, have I used the right style here? And after you get to know people, you might also discover that initially you thought they were D, but actually they're a DI. So there is a side to them that likes the, you know, the friendliness, and maybe you've been a bit too businesslike, so you want to maybe invite them to play golf, or, you know, it's just really thinking about how you could move it forward, and how you could use this type of intelligence to close the sales, or close more sales, shall we say.